Meantime, another case involving the Supreme Court and whether private religious schools in Kentucky can hold in-person classes. Governor Andy Beshear ordered all schools to hold virtual classes until early January due to the pandemic. Danville Christian Academy fought that, and a U.S. district judge agreed with the school, but that decision was then overturned on appeal. So now the school is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to weigh in. And joining us now to talk more about this particular case is Hiram Sasser, legal counsel for Danville Christian Academy. The Justice Kavanaugh has asked the governor to respond to this by tomorrow. Hiram, have you heard from him, and what are you expecting to hear?
Well, we haven't heard anything yet because their brief is due tomorrow, but what we're expecting to hear from them is more of the same, which is that the governor has almost unlimited and unchecked power during a pandemic, and that the Constitution doesn't really seem to apply. I mean, that's the basic arguments that they've been making, and I just assume that that's what they're going to be putting forward yet again.
So you're basically asking that the same ruling that we mentioned a minute ago about opening places of worship be applied to keeping religious schools open as well. But the governor's order includes both public and private schools. So how do you think that argument will work in your favor?
Yeah, the problem in Kentucky is that there's so many things that are open, like shopping centers and movie theaters and bowling alleys and wedding venues. And in fact, what's fascinating is if you have a 5-year-old kid, but they're in pre-K, their school's open. They can go to school. But if you have a 5-year-old who's in kindergarten, then it's closed. But if you have an 18-year-old who's in high school, they can't go to school, but if they're in college, they can. So it's that inconsistency that's going on where the rules don't seem to apply to the same kinds of activities. And when you have a religious liberty claim, when you have a religiously motivated activity like Danville Christian Academy, the Constitution demands that all of these rules at the bare minimum have to be at least consistent across the board. And especially on top of that, when you have Dr. Fauci and the CDC saying that schools are the best place for kids right now, what the governor is doing just really doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'm sure there are people watching this, Counselor, who are saying we're setting records left and right. The number of cases, hospitalizations, and now deaths. Why not just err on the side of safety and hold tight for a little bit until this gets a little bit better? Dr. Redfield said today there could be 450,000 deaths by February.
Yeah, well, I think we have to listen to what Dr. Redfield had to say about schools. Like I said, that they're the safest place for kids. But that's one of the interesting things about Danville Christian Academy is that they have been extremely diligent about requiring masks, plexiglass between desks, and other procedures. They've even voluntarily had to take other really significant precautions. But they have a religious belief about meeting in person. And the fact is, in that county, the county they're in, no one in this entire year has ever died from COVID. And in fact, that county is doing really, really well. And this school has served as a model, not only for the local health department that approved their plan, but also for other schools that have been looking to how can they possibly safely open during this time. And Danville Christian Academy has been doing it by the book. Mm-hmm. So they're really the model that I think the CDC has been pointing towards, that type of opening for schools that is the safest place for kids.
You mentioned this just a minute ago, Hiram. Courts typically side with governments when you're talking about restrictions and emergency orders when it comes to public health. What do you think is your biggest challenge in this case?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is that, you know, we're having to press the courts obviously for time, and we're having to ask for an emergency order. But you know, the court has already demonstrated that they're not really interested in allowing the governors to put the Constitution on the back burner. And these governors are going to have to actually apply the Constitution appropriately. That doesn't mean that every school would be able to be open. They have to follow certain guidelines, and they have to be careful. But especially for our client, Danville Christian Academy, in the county they're in that's doing so well, and how they've done it as a model school that has been a model that the health department has pointed out for other schools to utilize. this is definitely the type of case that we think the Supreme Court should overturn.
All right, we'll see what happens. Hiram Sasser, thank you very much. He is the legal counsel for Danville Christian Academy in Kentucky. We appreciate your time, sir.